I'm Prerna Mahajan, and I am the project manager for Enterprise Human Resources Statewide Initiative.
Good morning, I'm Liam Williams. I'm the Ops Manager for CalHR Statewide Training.
Hi, I'm Janet Fong, and I work for the Department of Technology. I've been on board with Enterprise HR from the inception, so project manager.
So today we would like to take this opportunity to give you an overview about Enterprise Human Resources, also known as EntHR, and the benefits it brings to the state of California and the departments. Then we will talk about the learning management system. Actually, Liam will walk you through that, provide you the high-level architecture of that and the benefit it brings to the state departments. And then Janet from CDT will talk about how the state departments can enroll to this learning management solution through the vendor-hosted subscription service, which is an easy route to get the learning management system for your department. And then we have 10 minutes reserved at the end to answer any questions you may have, but we are happy to take any questions as we cruise along. So here are some of the current challenges that as state of California and departments we are seeing, and I'm sure some of you can actually relate to many of these. There has been inconsistent implementation of statewide HR policies and trainings. There is a lack of standardized HR technology solutions statewide. I mean, some of the departments have their HR business functions automated, but again, the thing is, like, they cannot share that data or their experiences on those solutions with other departments. And the biggest challenge that we are seeing right now is that for an employee, we are unable to share the employee data across departments, which makes it difficult to carry their information as they change their job from one department to another. But overall, as a state, we are unable to have the statewide reporting to make better decisions on employee engagement and employee experience throughout their state employment. So to cater some of these challenges, if not all, GovOps, which is the parent agency for 11 departments, came up with the Civil Service Improvement Initiative back in 2017. And the whole purpose of that initiative is to produce a capable and engaged state workforce to serve better to the state of California. And how do you do that? It's by having the data centralized for the employees so that better data reporting can be done, better data-driven decisions can be made. So for that, Enterprise Human Resources State Initiative came into inception from there with the purpose to improve the employee processes as well as the HR automation throughout state. And the main purpose of it is to capture the data centrally throughout the state for these employees to make better decisions. CDD actually did a survey back in 2015 across the state departments to see, hey, what are the technology solution needs for all the departments? And the number one ask was that there is a need for HR technology solution. And learning management solution was the number one HR tool that was being asked for. So how to go about this statewide automation was a big challenge to tackle. So for that, the GovOps actually created the EntHR task force, which consisted of the executives from CDT, CalHR, and State Controller's Office. They met over a period of 4 months in 2017 and started to lay out the process about how do they want to go about the statewide automation. So they came up with the list of capabilities, the HR core functions and the capabilities that will be in the scope of EntHR. They created the strategic capabilities roadmap and the operational roadmap of how these capabilities will be implemented and automated for state. So the first few projects that came out of it is the Employee Core Record project, which is nothing but a database to store the core data elements for employee. But the key part of it is the unique employee identifier. So right now, the state uses SSN to track employees. But going forward, the idea is to have the unique employee identifier, which is generated by State Controller's Office, to track the employees and their history throughout the state. And then the learning management system was the second project which came out of it, because that was the number one ask. And second, there was not a lot of government rules and regulations around it. So I already covered the purpose of EntHR, but basically it helps the employees to have their information captured centrally, and also that their information moves with them as they change their jobs from one department to another, so that they don't have to use a paper file to carry with them when they change their departments. And especially for HR staff and managers, it really helps to have streamlined and standardized HR processes, but also it helps and enables the managers and the HR staff to do the data reporting and also make better data-driven decisions to see and engage their employees and have a better employee experience for their job. Talking about what we have accomplished so far, so like I said, we now have the unique employee ID to track employee information. The employee core record is a database that stores the core data elements for an employee, but it's going to grow big as we will automate more HR solutions going forward. Learning management system, actually we rolled out the learning management system through the vendor-hosted subscription services model in December of last year through 2 certified vendors, Blackboard and Cornerstone. These 2 vendors are certified for the interoperability requirements. That means that they can share the training data for an employee using that UEID throughout state and across departments. And then the learning core record is basically the database that we have created again to store all the training information for an employee, which can be captured across state through across departments. So what is the business value and the benefit of EntHR? Well, the first and foremost is to improve the employee experience and the retention throughout their state employment. Definitely, it'll help you to give you standardized set of enterprise technology solution for human resources, so that departments can pick and choose those solutions and configure or customize based on their needs. And the other most important is that it'll simplify and standardize the human resource data sharing and data reporting statewide and across departments to make better decisions. And departments definitely play a great role in making this initiative a huge success, because by actually automating some of your HR functions like learning management, you are going to share that data for an employee, which can be used for statewide reporting and analysis so that state can make a better decision. So with this, I will hand it over to Liam to talk about learning management solution.
Thank you, Prerna. For those who don't know me, I'm Liam Williams. I'm the operations manager. I've been involved kind of in some of the business need end of this, working with Janet for the last couple of years. And I'm going to kind of go through, this is sort of the architecture on how this data is shared. I'm not an IT person. I find this very easy to sort of follow. And some of the data elements that we're trying to capture, we didn't want to put on there because there's quite a lot, but for those, in the training world are kind of curious, it's what we are capturing is any learning that is completed and through that LMS, not just required training, but any learning that you have that your employees take. And that's going to be stored in that learning core record. So as that employee moves on, goes to another department, all that training data is going to come with them. Or if you get a new employee that, has utilized this system, you're going to get all that training data, previous stuff. With that too is also, we're kind of flagging some of the state required training. So your supervisor 80-hour training, your sexual harassment prevention training. That way, when you do get that new employee, you don't need to kind of go back through their record or ask them like, hey, your supervisor, when was the last time you took sexual harassment prevention? You're going to have that record as they migrate, the system migrates. But kind of give a little rundown on the overview. So if you look in the bottom left, you'll see the employee master data management. That's the information that actually comes from SEO, along with the UEID, and it's an employee's name, their basic information on who they are. Comes from SEO and feeds into the employee core record, that database, which is linked to the learning core record through the UEID. And then the SEO feed comes weekly. So if you do get a new employee, there'll be a little bit of lag on when that information comes over. They'll still be able to access your learning management system. This is all in the background. Doesn't necessarily affect what you would see in your LMS solution. And then there's a nightly feed that goes through an API, which again, I'm not an IT person. I learned that's application programming interface. But it feeds through this API to the learning management system nightly. So that data, if you get a new employee in, that data will be pushed up into your learning management system, and you'll see that transcript or record of any training they've taken before. And with that, too, is also a nightly feed from the learning management system back into that learning management system of any training that they've taken. So if they've completed, if they've registered for training or they're halfway through, we'll get, it'll include that status. And it'll go back into that learning core record. So I forget anything. Some of the other stuff that is included with the sort of the data elements that will be fed up nightly, and this kind of goes along with the mandated training. If there's a new government code, a new requirement, we'll use an example of the sexual harassment prevention training now for all staff. If something like that happens, we're going to feed that into that core record, and that's going to feed up into your system and show the requirements. So there's going to be a certain drop-down list when you create a course in your system, and there'll be a drop-down list. Is this state mandated training? You say yes, and it's going to have another drop-down list of what requirement it is. So if a new mandated training's there, it's automatically going to feed those drop-down lists that we've worked into the requirements, into the contract for the learning management solution.
So CalHR is the holder of all that information?
Yeah, CalHR or CDT.
Well, no, actually, the Department of Technology, the DROM, the databases, that's the main repository where this information is being stored. So.
And CDT controls the APIs as well. They maintain those.
So they control the technology aspect of it.
All right.
Here's a question.
Oh, yes.
So the UEID, do we support actually implementing Blackboard now? Yes. And so does each department have to create a field for UEID, or is that being done by CDT? Are you contacting the field yourself?
The UEID actually exists right now for every employee right now in this room. State employee in this room right now has a UEID assigned to you. Through that API, and we're working with the vendors on how the learner in that system will get linked with that UEID.
So to answer further the question, this UEID, basically this diagram here, is all built into this learning management system. So as a user of the learning management system, a lot of this will be transparent. The pipeline behind the scenes of trading data back and forth, getting the UEID, storing it in the repository, a lot of this stuff will be done behind the scenes. So as a user of this system, you're going to be experiencing the experience of using this learning management, and all of this stuff will already be taken care of.
Thank you. So we are also going to be in the similar process, and what I understand is this is a two-step thing. Like one is what happens when you migrate from what database you have right now to the LMS versus when users actually start using it through the user interface. So the unique IDs which CalHR and CDT is keeping here at a depository. So when a user creates its user or becomes a new user to this system, is it automatically given to them, which is already defined as identified as a unique ID for that employee, or it's a system-generated temporary ID, and then it will be transferred to MapCal HR records in the back end?
So, like Janet mentioned, if you are going through the VHS LMS, when you are going to do the user registration, we are working with the vendors during that user registration, that when the user comes and asks for the new login ID, that UEID will be automatically linked to that user. And to answer the question on the DGS side, for the departments which have already gone ahead, we are also working on a separate effort for the departments that they can actually update the UEID in their Oracle e-business suite or whatever database in their Active Directory to have the UEID linkage for their employees so that they can use these products or vendor systems to go ahead and link that UEID with the employee information. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Is it the real-time? So the UDID is created as a real-time thing as a new employee is getting hired in any of the departments, or there is any lag in between?
There is going to be a lag because UEID is generated by State Controller's Office. We get that file weekly. So by the time we get the file, that employee may not be able to do. So, but that doesn't restrict a user to use the LMS system without a UEID. So behind the scene, we will be able to do that sync on a UEID so that, like even for the users which do not have the UEID while they registered. All right.
And again, what we're talking about here is all in the background, as Janet was saying, to your user, to your HR professionals that are utilizing the systems. There's very little of what we built into this contract, these requirements for this interoperability that really they're going to see. Again, some of it's just going to be some of the tags for whether it's mandated training and some of the stuff that we want to track. So again, if there is a lag or we're working with different departments, different ways on how we're getting their users on that system and what their Active Directory looks like and how we're linking that up is varying a little bit from department to department. We're trying to standardize that. So, and as we kind of talked about, there's a couple different business values to this. The vendor enterprise HR integration, we achieved the data consistency throughout the state. For years, I've been with the state for about 2 years now, and I've realized like a lot of the departments are very siloed in what they do, and that's good because they all have different business needs that they need to do. But from a statewide perspective for CalHR, CDT, GovOps, we want to be able, again, for for training in general, be able to roll it up. But specifically, we go and standardize that required mandated training from a statewide effort so we can kind of have that data. With this VHS LMS contract as well, there was talk about going through a single state LMS solution, but it was decided to give kind of flexibility to departments to have options on which LMS solution worked for them. And it lets them create their own unique courses, meet department-specific needs, without us as a state mandating your learning management system will look this way. You guys can still develop it. We just want certain information from you. Again, it'll capture your learning records that it'll maintain with that employee, with that UEID throughout their career. And as they build on the enterprise HR solutions, that UEID is going to help track all that other data as well as they stay throughout the state. You'd be able to implement tracking statewide. Yeah, I mentioned the mandatory training. We're centralizing the data. And most importantly, it's all about the employee experience. To be able for that employee, again, I've realized in the States that not many people stay with one department for 20, 30 years. They get in state service, they're moving around. And it helps you as a department, and it helps that employee keep track of what their required training is, their mandated training, and just in general. So, any other questions? Yes?
I can speak loud enough.
Here anyway, here you go.
Oh, I don't really want it. So will the DGS LMS be able, it sounds like that we'll be able to talk to the CalHR LMS.
Yeah, initially, when we roll this out, this interoperability was built into the contract for VHSS, for those who buy the licenses. Now, we're aware going through this project for the picture. I don't know if you want to go back to the architecture one. So when we were looking at this, we have the departments that are inside the VHSS. That's already built in, this interoperability. We knew that outside of this, there would be departments that currently have other learning management solutions, whether it's Blackboard or Cornerstone that's on the VHSS, or Saba or something else outside. Initially, we rolled out the VHSS. We're making sure the certification works, and then I know we've had talks with DGS, we've had talks with other departments that currently have these solutions and how we're going to integrate them next. And we're also, and you may talk better to this, they're going to work on governance for every department on how they share that data. We're not, as of now, we're not mandating that people purchase their licenses through a VHSS. We're encouraging it, and Tom can speak to this. It's a much easier procurement, leverage procurement. You don't have to put on RFP, anything like that. The contract's already in place. You're just purchasing licenses. But yes, we are going to work, since at least for the 2 vendors that are on the VHSS right now, we've certified them. We know how that interoperability works. We're working that out. So for like DGS or Cal Victims, it's going to be a much easier integration when we get to that.
Okay, and I can tell you from a user's experience, what we would like to see, and I don't know how this would happen or if it's something that we can do, is to have our employees go through the LMS to sign up for the CalHR, for example, the California Leadership Academy, get the mandated training, to not have to go to a separate site of CalHR. Yeah. Is that something you see happening?
I would love that to happen. Absolutely. We currently at CalHR are looking to acquire our LMS. So once we get that, I would love to see how that works, whatever solution we go with. And, we'll figure out how that works. And yeah, I would love to see that happen. If I can make that happen, and I'll probably have talks with Tom a lot about this. Yeah, we can get that to happen. We absolutely would love to do that. We've had requests for our catalog to be on other people's LMS solutions, same way. Same with Department of Technologies for their education training center. So yeah, if we can figure out how that works, then absolutely.
I think the key word there is customization.
We can actually speak to it a little bit later when we do some of our presentation. Taborda's Train solution can help facilitate a lot of that, but hopefully a more integrated vision in the future.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Yes.
We were a little bit shocked to find out that neither Blackboard or Cornerstone was tested for accessibility in 508. We understood that CDP told us that they were to give a certification, but that the solutions themselves were not tested. Is that correct?
We did not test the solutions, but it was a requirement in the contract that they be 508 compliant. If they are not, then they're, we've got to go back and talk to them. But I'll let Tom talk to their.
So in our presentation later today, when Daryl, Abby, and I get up, we're actually going to have a little bit of a focus on accessibility. That's one of our focuses as a company. So we'll absolutely address that for you today. Thanks.
Any other questions? I'm going to pass it off to Janet then. She's going to talk about the VHSS LMS service.
Thank you. It sounds like there's a lot of interest in learning management system. Can I just get a show of hands of those who already have an LMS solution in place? What about those who actually have it with the VHSS? Are there, so far, one? Which department do you represent? Okay. So I'm hoping that, with this presentation this morning, if nothing else, it provides you an awareness of what's out there from a learning management standpoint. VHSS, it was implemented. We just, as Prerna and Liam mentioned, we certified them last year so that they fulfilled the contractual requirements. But we want to have this as another offering for departments. It's a much easier process to actually procure licenses. And this particular VHSS is only for licenses only. So for those who might be interested, this is a way for how you can sign up for it and get more information. For each state department, there should be a customer engagement representative assigned to a department. Are you familiar with who your representative is within your department? For those who are, definitely reach out to them. For those who are not, you can actually find it on our CDT website. So it's cdt.ca.gov, and that will take you directly to the main page. At the very top of the page is a link called Support. There's an icon, I believe it's a telephone and a letter. You click on that, and it'll allow you to select by your department, and then the account representative will show up, and then you can just call them directly. So the main idea is, you don't have to do it alone. You could speak with folks from CalHR, CDT, and also the vendor community, and they can help walk you through the process. So the main idea behind that is there is a service catalog that is out there on our CDT website. There's a link that's out there that's on this slide deck, and it provides you with high-level information. Talks about what the benefits are for LMS, what it includes. The beauty behind this is that it has the interoperability. So, we talked about, and we learned earlier in this conversation that, for those who already have their own external LMS solution, it doesn't have the hooks into this interoperability, but that's what the features are for this particular solution. So if you're interested, take a look out there. There's an implementation planning checklist. It's designed for any department, anybody who's interested in LMS. A lot of the same basic fundamental planning questions that you would ask. Well, what are my needs? What are my business requirements? Who's going to support this in my organization, and who's going to be operationalizing that? So a lot of the upfront planning needs to take place, as well as, from a funding perspective. What's involved from a department perspective to help me make an informed decision on whether LMS is the right way to go for me. So once you take a look out on the service catalog, I'm doing a worksheet, and it's just internal for the departments, just from a planning perspective. Once you figure out what's important to the department, what my business requirements are, then by all means, shop. Call your account rep, call the vendors, call Cornerstone, call Blackboard. Find out what products they have that can serve your needs. And once you've had that dialogue with them and you feel comfortable that you're ready to secure licenses, then off of that service catalog, there is a button called Service Request. You click on it and you fill out the information. It's as simple as submitting a form. It will go directly to CDT. A group of individuals will process this service request, get in touch with the departments, and then from there, the contracts will be set up. And once that is done, then we normally have a formal onboarding session. So we have representatives from CDT, we have folks from CalHR, and the vendor. All three partners are together on site at a department location, and we're walking them through the process of actually ramping up and setting up for this engagement. And then from there, we turn it over to the vendor, where the vendor and also the department work hand in hand to configure the application to meet their business needs. So take a look out there on the service catalog. It has the rates, it has the products. It also provides a link to the CalHR website. Within the CalHR website, there are web pages that are out there that talks about enterprise HR. It talks about the learning management system. So if you want more information on that, those are two resources that you can go. Also, of course, contact your account representative. So between all of these parties, definitely if you have any other questions, call Liam. But yes, we should be able to help you. And there's a lot of other departments who are in the same boat. So I know that there are other departments that are eager to share their experience and their knowledge and to help one another.
Another question?
Yeah, so we actually make a procurement request to CDT, not to the vendor.
So
Because you
which?
said you go to the site for the VHSS?
Yes.
It's the request to automated procurement, is it through CDT?
Refresh my memory. Do you have VHSS learning management, or you have your own, right?
We started implementation. I see. But that's not solving VHS.
Okay. So it sounds like in order to do that, you had to go through a procurement. Did you go? You said you went through CDT on that, or you went through your internal procurement within your department? And so your right. I mean, the intent is for those who right now are in flight with their own LMS solution. The intent is once the departments are up for renewal, the plan is to bring them into, you know, if you have Blackboard, bring them on board to the VHSS, because the main goal is to take advantage of this interoperability. Because otherwise, if you keep your own system as it is, either, number one, you don't get to participate in this interoperability, or number two, you're going to have to pay a vendor to build it within your solution so that you can get it. Whereas in this particular VHSS solution, it's already built in. It's within the base model of the product when you purchase it. So that's just one less thing that you would have to. Yes. Are there any other questions?
Yes.
So the licensing happens per user for the department, or department gets certain number of user licenses as a part of procurement?
Yeah, so just to make clear, and I'm learning all this myself too, this is not if you purchase the licenses through VHSS, this is outside of what you would consider your normal contracting procurement process. You don't need to put out an RFP, you don't need to solicit bids. The contract is already in place with the vendors. So by putting in this service request with CDT, then you're just purchasing the license. It also gives you the ability to, depending on how you're funding it, get around some of the state PAL process. If you've had to deal with that, it's a long, lengthy process thing. So to answer your question with the number of licenses, part of their rates, and when you're talking to the vendors, and you're getting the quote from them, you know, they'll work that out. How many licenses do you need? How many employees do you have? And their pricing is based on the number of licenses, the number of users. So, you know, if you have a department with 500 people and you know, I know Blackboard is a scalable range, you know, they'll give you a quote based on the number of users that you're going to utilize.
One other thing that I wanted to mention is, you know, definitely the VHSS is the easier way to go. I just wanted to share with all of you that CDT is in partnership with the CalHR, and we're in the process of putting together policies from a statewide perspective, where we really want to enforce the user experience from the standpoint of sharing data across state departments. That will allow an employee to be able to see their training history throughout their course of their career. Also wanting to ensure that, you know, we're all in alignment from the state perspective. From a learning management perspective, I realize that each department has their own unique way of handling their business. But as a common state entity, you know, we all are trying to keep track and manage training. And so we're trying to put together policies. It's in the works right now, but the plan is eventually we are going to require that departments share data and to have some level of the interoperability. So that's why we're trying to eventually bring everybody on board to a VHSS solution. It's just easier. We understand that there are a number of departments who may already have their own LMS solution. We've already talked about it with other people this morning. And it's just right now finding an opportunity where we can bring them along with the solutions they have.
Yes, I just got a very silly question.
We like those ones.
Yeah, so you mentioned about the LCR and you mentioned about UEID. So why the UEID and the fiscal ID are not integrated? Why there are two different IDs?
Let me answer that.
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Leon, No, that wasn't Liam. Answer it. So yeah, there were discussions. There were discussions early on when we developed this whole architecture. Should we choose SCOs, unique employee IDs? Should we use fiscal? To make the long story short, a decision was made that we were going to go ahead and use SCO's UEID. That was the system of record for which a lot of, any type of new employment, that was going to be the master source.
Guys, we have time for one more question.
Yes, sir.
Are you going to share that slide deck? There was a lot of good information. I couldn't write it all down, or at least the slide on the technical.
Yeah, I can share it, and I've got some of my business cards. If anyone wants a copy of that or any more information, please come see me on one of the breaks. And
We can share the slide deck out with the entire audience. Thanks, guys.
all right. Thank you, everyone, very much.